Now we're turning to Genex. I think we're going to hear some updates on Baldercombe and possibly Kidston. We have Craig Francis, who's the CEO, talking to the topic of delivering vital energy storage capacity for Queensland. Thank you, Craig.
Morning, everybody. I think everyone can hear me, and just figure out this. Good to be here and at this conference and to give you an update on our activities in the storage space, where we have a lot going on. But just to give a bit of an intro on Genex, we're ASX listed, the only ASX listed company left these days in the renewable energy and storage space, and we're focused on a portfolio of renewable energy generation and storage assets, principally in Queensland and New South Wales. Today we have a $1.1 billion portfolio of committed projects, 150 megawatts of which are in operation and 250 megawatts under construction. On top of that, the next phase of our growth is delivering a 2.3 gigawatt pipeline, so a pretty exciting path ahead. But the real sort of feather in our cap, I guess, is the Kidston Pumped Storage Hydro project. It's the first pumped storage hydro project that's going to be brought online in Australia in over 40 years, the first ever to be developed by the private sector. And it's in an old gold mine, so it's a pretty fascinating project, and we're chugging along with the development of that project into operation. Just in terms of the portfolio, this is what it looks like on the map, and I'm going to talk about three projects today. In the north, we have the Kidston Clean Energy Hub at the old Kidston gold mine, where we have the Kidston Pumped Storage Hydro project in year 3 of construction and about to enter the final period of that program. In central Queensland, we have the Baldercombe battery project that came online at the end of last year, 50 megawatts for 2 hours, and is now operating. And the next phase of our storage strategy, which is at a site called Bully Creek in southern Queensland, that's where the Queensland-New South Wales interconnector connects into the Queensland border, just south of that substation, a very strategic location, all of its permitting in place, and we're looking to put a large battery there as part of a battery and solar development. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But starting with Baldercombe, which is a pretty exciting project for us. It's our first battery, 50 megawatts, 100 megawatt hours. It's a Tesla battery, so it's 40 megapack units, 1.25 megawatts each, and it commenced operation in November last year. You may have read that there was an incident during the commissioning phase with a fire at a couple of the units, and I'll talk a little bit about that with the activities update. But the battery itself, 20-year warranty with Tesla and a 20-year O&M agreement. And really what's interesting about this project is the offtake structure that we've got in place, where Tesla is the offtaker for the project. And this is a very deliberate strategy of Genex's to get some merchant exposure into our portfolio in the storage space. The way the offtake works, and this is my little chart to try and explain it better to people, but essentially, Tesla is operating the plant with AutoBidder, which they've been using since 2017 at Hornsdale, operating in the 2 energy markets and the 10 FCAS markets, and really with the strategy to maximise revenue for the project. Coupled with that, they provide a revenue floor guarantee, so we've got a minimum revenue, which has enabled us to secure some project finance for the project. And then on top of that, we share the upside above that guarantee with Tesla in accordance with a fixed profit share ratio. So the chart on the right gives you an illustrative offtake year. The total is the total revenue that the battery would make. The dark green is what is the floor, and then the upside is shared in accordance with a fixed ratio, and that's just illustrative, but give you an idea of how the offtake works. And that's an 8-year offtake with Tesla, which started on the 10th of November last year. In terms of the activities, so we did have that fire incident during commissioning. It affected 2 of the 40 megapack units, and we were really in the final stage of commissioning in late September when that occurred. There was a period where we were undertaking root cause analysis with Tesla to understand what happened and get the battery up and running. That was completed, and we announced in early November that we were commencing with 38 of the 40 units under the offtake agreement, while Tesla secured the replacement 2 megapacks, which were delivered to site and installed in early December. The full operation commenced on the 12th of December at 50 megawatts, 100 megawatt hours unconstrained, and been operating at full capacity ever since. We reported our quarterly results last month, and that gave a result of $1.1 million in net revenue over the period from the 10th of November to the 31st of December. That was for 3,300 megawatt hours generated, and that represents an average of $331 per megawatt hour of energy generated. So that's the net revenue per megawatt hour. I think the read through here is that while they were replacing the 2 megapacks, we did suffer a few outages in the plant from the 10th of November to the 12th of December. So that revenue is largely representative of the period from the 12th to the end of the year. So a good result for part of a month really. And then we're looking ahead into January, and we've been operating the plant and we watch it daily now. But the market conditions have been really positive into January in Queensland. We've had 74 pricing intervals greater than $1,000 a megawatt hour, 31 in excess of $10,000 a megawatt hour. This has really been driven by summer heat and peak demand. And also charging has been really competitive at less than $50 a megawatt hour on average. So a really compelling business case for essentially a merchant battery in Queensland, using principally the arbitrage business case. So it's doing what we thought it would when we committed the project back in 2022, and we look forward to giving a further update in our next quarterly results in April. The next point I wanted to cover was just a bit of an update on what's happening at Kidston, where I mentioned we're building the first pump storage hydro project to connect to the NEM in 40 years. It's a 250 megawatt 8-hour scheme in an old gold mine in outback Queensland, sort of about 4.5 hours drive northwest of Townsville and 5.5 hours drive southwest of Cairns, so right in the middle. And really, just for those that aren't familiar with Kidston, to give you an idea, it's an old gold mine with 2 pits. One is really deep, about 300 metres deep, and full of water. The other one's quite shallow, and you can see the deep one in the foreground of the picture there on the slide. The concept of the scheme is to build a dam on top of the pit in the middle ground, and then drain the water from the deep pit in the foreground into the top ground to create 200 metres of head, which will then be used connected via underground waterways and a power station to generate electricity in peak periods, and then pump back up in off-peak periods. It's got an offtake with Energy Australia for 30 years. It's underpinned by $610 million of concessional government funding from the NAIF via a debt facility and a $47 million ARENA grant. And it's been constructed under a fixed price lump sum contract with John Holland and McConnell Dowell. So on track for energisation at the end of this year, which is going to be a very exciting milestone. This gives you an overview of the scheme, a sort of plan view of what the dam will look like once it's completed, and you'll see that the drained lower reservoir there, that body of water has shrunk. But look, in terms of where the project is at, it's really on the home straight is how we're seeing it. The underground works, which has been a big component, been underway since the beginning of 2022, is really now nearly complete, the excavation phase, and you can see that chart there sort of gives you a status, but most of the components are complete. The last little bits are the finishing of the powerhouse cavern and the excavation of the tail race tunnels. So yeah, underground works complete. That's a major component of the project. This gives you an idea of what this powerhouse cavern looks like. Just this void, when it's completed, will be 80 metres long, 50 metres high at its highest point, and 25 metres wide. And we're nearly there. We've got one more blast to go to get down to the final bottom level. Should be there in probably a month's time, and then the fit-out works will commence. But this is a really impressive structure. The photos don't do it justice when you're down the bottom looking up. It's just an unbelievable void underground, 200 metres underground. And we're going to be building a 6-storey building in here, so that's the next phase of the fit-out. This will rise out of the ground now to complete the power station construction. Other big component is the dam, and you'll see that picture on the left there gives you an idea of what the dam looks like. We've completed the dam liner now, and we've started to move the water up to the upper reservoir, and that water level is dropping pretty rapidly now. That should all be complete in a couple of months, so we'll have the water at its final levels. The other component is the transmission side of things. There's a new transmission line being constructed by Powerlink that comprises a substation at Kidston, a substation at the network end at a place called Mount Fox, and a 185 kilometre transmission connection. That's all going really well. The Mount Fox substation has reached practical completion. Kidston, not far behind it, will be done by 30 June, and it's really now just on the the transmission piece, which is all trucking along. All the foundations were poured before the wet season, and the towers are going up and the line is being strung. So all progressing well, and now into the final stage of the fit-out works, which should see energisation at the end of this year, and for GenX, first revenues in the first half of next year. So pretty exciting final year ahead for GenX and for the project, and hopefully for the NEM with its first pump storage hydro in 40 years. The last project I just wanted to touch on was this project at Bully Creek, and this is a project we acquired in 2022. We acquired it for its strategic location right next to the interconnector substation. It's 4 kilometres south of Bully Creek substation where we connect in, so right on the border. Very good location for MLF, marginal loss factors, for constraints, and lots of capacity for both battery and solar deployment there, fully permitted, and a huge amount of land available, secure with the landowner. So quite an advanced stage of development. And really we're now progressing the development of that project probably with 2 first stages. The first will be a large-scale solar farm, and you can see the solar layout there on the right. And that will be closely followed by a battery, which we're now sizing at 400 megawatts for 4 hours. So I know we've had some chat about durations. We've got a 2-hour battery ourselves. We are seeing a bit of demand now toward the 4-hour duration, and that's going to underpin a different style of revenue structure. We're developing it jointly with J Power, who's an 8% shareholder in GenX, and we've got a partnership on a couple of projects. The work streams have been progressing quite significantly in the last quarter. We've been to market on the project for this 400 megawatt 4-hour configuration. We've commenced our offtake discussions. It's going to have multiple revenue streams, we think, and certainly playing into that position right on the interconnector, it's going to have some pretty innovative revenue options, we think, in terms of managing flows on the interconnector for portfolios, but also for the network. And obviously we've started the connection process with PowerLink. But this project, the solar farm, is looking for FID, final investment decision, later this year, and that will be followed by the battery in 2025. And you can see on the plan there where the battery is going to be located in between the solar panels next to that north-south corridor, which is where the Queensland-New South Wales interconnector runs right through the site. So a pretty neat fit for large-scale battery and solar deployment right on the border. But that's sort of all for the update. This is just our general investment highlights, but I'll probably stop there and take any questions.
Thank you very much, James. That's a fascinating lot of work going on there.
James is my predecessor.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Craig. Apologies. Starting on Bully Creek, I noticed 700 megawatt kind of solar farm. That's a very large connection. Have you had much issue in going through connection process planning there?
Yeah, so this project has been around for some time. I think it's about sort of 9 years it was first conceived and under various guises, but we're using an old connection application that was submitted in 2019 and just updating that, and that's got PowerLink's blessing to do so. So it's all progressing pretty smoothly. There's no real issues raised in the grid studies, and ultimately being in that location on the network where there's been a recent upgrade and there's ample capacity from a system strength perspective, from constraints perspective. It's going pretty smoothly. Okay,
so no big impacts on equipment choice or anything?
No, and look, we just announced last month that we've appointed our preferred EPC and PCL constructors, a big Canadian outfit that's building a presence here in Australia. But we started the grid process last year, and we adopted the inverter technology early. Okay. And got the grid process going ahead of time, so we obviously didn't run into headwinds when we're trying to close a project later this year. Yeah, awesome, cool.
Is Bully Creek co-located or a hybrid, I suppose, is the connection?
Yeah, these are going to be standalone projects. Yep. From our perspective. We've been down that path before when we were developing Kidston. We see a lot of complexity around 2 massive projects trying to reach FID at the same time, multiple contractors, multiple suppliers, and multiple complexities with grid connection applications. So these are standalone projects. Will have standalone revenue structures and business models.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But they will share the connection infrastructure there. You would have seen this green site at the top. There's going to be a local substation built by PowerLink, owned and operated by them. It will be a designated network asset, and all of the projects will connect into there, including future stages of battery and solar to be developed down the line.
Okay. And you mentioned an EPC for the solar farm. Did that include the best portion as well, or is that a separate EPC contract? And will that likely be a split contract, do you know, or have you gone?
No, it's a full wrap EPC contract. So the contracting model for Bully Creek Solar will be a full wrap EPC for the solar construction, and then Powerlink will have scope for the construction of the designated network asset.
Okay.
But that's the interface we're looking at.
And the battery's yet to be explored?
Battery's yet to be explored. That
Yep.
will be, we'll be probably announcing some news on that over the coming months after we've been through the results of our tender process.
Okay, excellent. To Kidston, do you see constraint risk with Kidston given its remote location compared to a project like Bully Creek?
Is that Kidston Hydro, I'm assuming?
I assume so, yeah.
We did a lot of modelling on that before we committed the project to final investment decision. Obviously, it's a provider of system strength and inertia, so the constraints are more thermal. And there was a lot of work done on the Rossiter-London connection from Townsville to Cairns. Ultimately, there was some upgrades performed by Powerlink there to enhance the capacity, which has relieved the concerns that we had at the time, and that was factored into our thinking. And then obviously Energy Australia will also be taking the constraint risk, so it's really a matter for them, and they got comfortable on that basis as well.
Okay, cool. And there was a couple of questions on fire. I suppose, are you able to talk just to the root cause of the fire, what you've learnt and how much that impacted the community? I think there was a couple of questions there about what the community had to do. Was there need for the community to be on alert and stay indoors, etc., while the fire was happening?
Yeah, the community is very small, and it's about 500 metres away from the substation. The Bully Creek battery is located on Powerlink land, actually within the Powerlink substation footprint. So it's right next to the shortest connection you could imagine. In terms of the fire itself, we'll be publishing a public root cause analysis report, I think, pretty soon. The issue that we announced was it was an inverter issue within one of the megapack units. We're informed by Tesla it was a manufacturing issue. Checks were performed on all the other packs, and replacements were made on a couple of those just out of abundance of caution, and we will confirm we were okay to proceed. So that was ultimately the cause. Very different to the other event in Victoria. In terms of the community, there were concerns raised at the time. The fire itself, the protocol with these and the design of these units is to contain the fire and allow them to burn out. You don't put water on the units. The fire is largely contained within the units. So that's exactly what we saw. We replaced the second unit because there was a little bit of thermal damage, but otherwise it was unharmed. The fire was contained, and it burnt out within 24 hours. So. We've been engaged with the community and speaking to neighbours and locals, and I don't think there's too much concern about it.
Okay. And emergency response was good given the remote location. I suppose that's tricky.
Yeah, well, this one's just outside Rockhampton, so not too bad.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, look, it was. I think the site was attended very quickly, and really there was nothing to be done but to watch and make sure it burnt out in a controlled manner. But I think the fire brigade disbanded, probably within about 8 hours or so from arrival at the site.
Okay, good. All right, and one last one, Craig. Does GenX have further appetite for investment in New South Wales? What are the major system risk differences between investments in both states?
Look, we do, of course. We look at all of the jurisdictions in the NEM. We are NEM focused. I think we've sort of confined our strategy to the East Coast for that reason. I guess we found ourselves in Queensland just through the opportunities that we've been able to identify to date. That's not saying we're ruling out New South Wales. We've got one asset in New South Wales, a 50 megawatt operating solar farm, and we'll continue to look at mostly sort of solar, wind and batteries in New South Wales, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, a very exciting year coming up by the sound of it, Craig. So hopefully next year we might be opening some champagne at the next talk you give.
Can't wait.
All right, well, thank you very much, and please give Craig a round of applause. Thank you.